Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. It's your boy Road Dogg here with the man of the hour, the biggest Leafs fan that could, and the worst predictor of their playoff success in the history of the playoffs, Mr. Karl Bryan.
Yo, shoots, Road Dogg. How goes it, big fella? What's happening, man? What's happening?
Well, I texted you yesterday with a playoff bracket of the NHL Stanley Cup Playoffs 2021 edition. And I said that we were going to talk about it because I want to know what not to bet on. So I just want everyone to have, everyone's really, talking about blockchain and Bitcoin and everything else. I'm like, what's a better guaranteed strategy to make money quickly? Bet on 100% the opposite of what Karl tells us to bet on in the hockey playoffs.
And in all seriousness, you've followed me, my personal profile on Facebook, I have been making predictions for the last, I'm going to say 3 years. And honestly, my strike rate is I'm horrible. I am horrible. It's an ongoing joke, but I am going to change that this year, Shoots. I got this. So
I'm going to go ahead and agree with myself on this one and say that you're wrong. But because I know, here's what I do know. You've got the Leafs going all the way.
Oh,
which
baby.
Right there should default and eliminate any other predictions that you make.
Okay, you want me to give them to you, Shoots?
Yeah, I want to know. Toronto, Montreal, who you got?
Toronto, boom.
Edmonton, Winnipeg.
Edmonton, boom. Okay,
then obviously you're picking Toronto over Edmonton. Okay, but Carolina, Nashville.
Okay, hang on. Let's just do the first round. Okay. So Toronto, Edmonton.
Yeah,
who's
Carolina, Nashville.
Nashville, boom.
Florida, Tampa.
Tampa, boom.
Pittsburgh, New York.
New York Islanders all the way, baby.
You're just saying that because you saw the game yesterday.
No, honestly, that doesn't have any bearing on it, honestly.
Ridiculous. Washington Bruins.
Boston. I cannot stand them, but Boston.
Okay, good. Colorado, St. Louis.
Colorado, easy.
Vegas, Minnesota.
Ooh, Vegas. They lost game one.
The only reason you say ooh is because Minnesota won yesterday. That's it. But Vegas does have goal scoring issues. Okay, so my predictions, I'm going with Toronto as well. I'm going with Edmonton. I'm going Carolina. I am going Tampa. I'm going Pittsburgh, Washington, Colorado, Vegas. Okay, so we got one. Round. Who you got?
Okay, no, let's do second round when the first round's over. Let's do that.
Cool? All right. Okay, but you are picking Toronto the entire way.
Oh yeah, not even a question. They're taking it home, baby. Boom.
Okay, so I've got myself. So who you got them playing in the final? At least reveal that.
Boston.
Really?
Yeah, or Colorado.
That's a little misguided in my opinion. I've got Tampa, Colorado, and Colorado taking it.
Well, we're all gonna know. Look at this. We'll see. So Road Dogg started this off with how terrible I am. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to find out. Anyway.
And all I'm gonna say is, if you're gonna hitch your wagon, we know the history of what you're hitching to with Karl Bryan over there, and I guarantee you, it's not going to be it's like a ride off of a cliff. It looks really good, the view from up there, until you realize you're in free fall. So there you go. Right. Anyways, let's go off with that. So now that we got that out of the way, I'm really glad we did that because you know what? It just sets me up for more material down the road. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. All right, bud, you ready to get into this a little bit?
I am. Let's go.
By the way, have I mentioned how amazing you sound? Crisp and clear. Just like
new microphone by popular request from our audience. Keep telling me it sounds like we're in caves. So There you
Well,
go. And I look good. I always sound good. I look good, Shoots. You can't see me, but I'm looking fantastic.
this is Karl Bryan coming at you live from his jail cell. Like, is that what it is typically? That's why it's a Monday morning. It's like you haven't posted bail yet to get out from the weekend. All right. First question. Now, this one is a little bit specific, so perhaps I need to clarify this. Someone asked in regards to the profit acceleration software. Now, this is a proprietary software, big word, proprietary software, exclusive to LPW coaches. So if you don't know what that is, focused.com, definitely go there and learn more. But anyways, is there a PAS specific site, Karl, or no?
Yeah, profitaccelerationsoftware.com. There you go.
Well, look at that, folks. That's just how easy it is. That's just how easy Karl's going to make your life. All right. When I use your profit acceleration software, I enter the gross and net margins for a new client. What's an acceptable gross/net margin for an average business? Great question.
Ooh, yeah. That's a good one. An acceptable gross net margin for the average business. What is average would be the first thing, but margin is a superpower for business. The biggest brands that you've known over the last 50 years have one thing in common for the most part, and that's going to be high margin. I've talked about this on previous episodes. We won't go deep, but like Ferrari, Apple, Coke, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Rolex, Lamborghini, whatever you're going to call, like they have what's called like luxury margins. Okay. So it's like kind of magic for business, but generally speaking, people are doing it wrong. So why are they doing it wrong? When somebody calls, we're going to call it daycare, we're going to call for whatever it is, the first question, what do you ask? How much, right? So the inexperienced operator, they automatically assume, and I guess rightfully so, but that's the primary factor in their decision-making process, right? But think about the last time you bought a car. What did you look at first? You were looking at price, right, as a starting point. But in the end, you bought on value. If we all bought on price, we'd all be buying and driving $2,000 Pintos, right? So no, it's the right car, the right color, the right mileage, the right number of seats, the right style, the right brand for sure would come into it. So like the solution, okay, you and your high-end coaching clients need a sales process. Like I get an email every day asking me about profit acceleration software. I'll get a personal message on Facebook, like how much is the software to do. And just you're not going to get the answer is the question, because there is a sales process, because the software without the value attached and the explanation and the weighted algorithms just doesn't, you know what I mean? It's not time for that, right? It might not be right for you. So what's the point, right? So, and how do we solve this issue? My profit acceleration software has 497 million weighted algorithmic sequences that populate a roadmap. Think of it as a step-by-step guide on what basically your new high-end coaching clients needs to do, when to do it, as in the order for like their, what we'll call their optimal financial success maybe, right? So like if a company has 10% margins and you decrease their expenses by 11%, you double that company's profitability. Okay, think about no staff, no sales, no funnels, no Facebook ads, no cold calls, no live presentations, no nothing. Just a 30-minute look through your expenses, and more to the point, your unnecessary expenses that they've never really critiqued in like years, will double their margins. So again, let me say that again. If a company has 10% margins, which is very common, right, amongst your coaching clients, they think they're higher, but they've never actually done the math, and you decrease their expenses by 11%, you double that company's profitability. So the software will therefore weight the order of your actions and for that client accordingly, right? And again, it will go to where can they be most profitable. So and everyone else wants to start with sales and revenue, like it's some kind of bad rap song, right? So spreading your new high-end coaching clients' margin is often a way better place to start and to really move the needle, as in create some not necessarily luxury margins, but good margins. But it's not as sexy as Facebook ads and 4-hour work weeks, passive income, selling online courses for $97 a month, multiple streams of income. These are sexy, right? Going to somebody's credit card statements and going to their expenses, there's nothing sexy about it. It's boring. You'll have to manage your clients' psychology to get it done and do it properly. But if done in the wrong order, like it's very expensive when you do this stuff in the wrong order. Like you go to sales and you go to Facebook ads before you go to margin. Why did 90% fail? Well, it'll give you a bit of an idea, right? So back to the question. I'm rambling a bit here. As a general rule, Warren Buffett, he will basically tell you that 40% gross profit margins, 20% net would be a good benchmark for a business that can scale and grow effectively. And understand that Warren Buffett isn't interested in being in part of a company that is not going to be able to scale effectively, right? So as I just said, like businesses of all shapes and sizes are renowned for making the mistake of growing as a starting point rather than increasing their margin, either at the same time or at all, right? So the client I mentioned a minute ago, right, with 10% margins, go to this guy and just say, look, Warren, I spoke to Warren Buffett on the weekend, and he recommends that we get those bad boys to 20%, right? Let's hold off on the sales. Let's hold off on the Facebook ads, and let's go here. But it's not going to be sexy. It's not going to be really exciting. It's not going to be an adrenaline rush. It's not going to be dopamine like when you're playing on Facebook, but it's going to be highly profitable, right? Like here's a needle moving question for you. Does your client, do you want to grow or do you want to get rich? Right. And then one is for your ego, which is growing. And again, I've covered this on many other of our podcasts, but like one's for ego and one's for creating wealth and freedom. Right. So without your help and direction, as a business coach, your client is trying to get big so that they can get rich. And the bad news is very seldom works that way. So like Apple, who are like obviously one of the most successful companies, if not the most successful company in the world, depending upon what factors you want to use, but they have 40% gross, 20% net. They did actually fall short for a reasonably extended period of time, but that's because they were aggressively buying back stock. That's a conversation for another day. But look, worth mentioning here maybe is like Buffett's letters. If you read his letters to shareholders, and I've often talked of, rather than reading The Secret, you'd be better off to read letters to shareholders, right? You'll see him referring to this magic metric that he looks for, return on net tangible assets. Actually, he goes one step further and he looks for return on unleveraged net tangible assets. So the operative word there is unleveraged. So in 2019, Buffett characterized Heinz as a ripper business. Because I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was like they had 7 billion of tangible assets and they earned 6 billion pre-tax on that. And that's, if you factor that in, that's like 85 roughly percent return on unleveraged net tangible assets. Just take 6 billion and divide it into 7 billion, right? Very straightforward. And that's like what he'd refer to as an excellent grade by Warren Buffett's unique standards, right? So hence why he's a huge fan. Like he's often talked about what a great company Heinz is, and then he uses that as kind of a metaphor and an example that he helps you learn off of, right? And he's a huge, he's a huge investor in that company, right? So the foundation of what Buffett is looking for in this calculation, and part of what he primarily uses when doing what he calls value investing, is that can the business grow off cash flow versus taking on more debt, right? So the return on unleveraged net tangible assets will give you the answer to this question. So let me dummy this down. Okay, so I know you're sitting here possibly listening going, okay, yeah, but my client's not Heinz and that's never going to happen. So can your client, let's call it the local construction company, can they buy more trucks and equipment off of cash flow, or do they need to go to the bank to get more debt, to buy equipment, new equipment they need, new vehicles, stuff that's going to make them more efficient, presumably, right? Like Common Sense Corner will dictate if they take on more debt, they become more vulnerable to something like a downturn, or if you understand construction, you often get diddled by, a reasonably big customer, and it's always the one that you don't want to get diddled by. It's like Monopoly. Businesses go out of business when they run out of money. They don't go out of business because they run out of opportunities or, future potential. They go out of business like Monopoly when you run out of money, right? So just think of your balance sheet as a balance sheet in the accounting world. Just think of it as a family picture. It's a moment in time captured, like as at December 1st, 2022, right? And your income statement is like a home movie where it's over a period of time, like a month, a quarter, or a year. So an example would be you'd see an income statement for the period December 1st to January 31st, right? So your cash flow statement is also a movie. It's over a period of time, say, February 1st to February 28th. So the income statement is a measure of financial performance of the company, but the cash flow statement represents the ins and outs of cash, and it's the lifeblood of a business. I want you to go to your high-end coaching client, the construction company, ask if you can see his cash flow statement, and I'm going to tell you what he's going to say. I don't have one. And then they wonder why 90% fail, right? It's like playing cricket or playing sport, hockey, football, whatever, and not understanding the scoreboard, which I often use cricket as the example, because I lived in Australia for a long time, so I can read a cricket scoreboard. But when I first saw one, it looked like Chinese arithmetic on steroids, the same way that an Aussie will see a gridiron or a football, American football scoreboard and not be able to follow it immediately. But once they followed the sport for a short period of time, you'd be able to read a cricket scoreboard ridiculously quickly, and they can read the scoreboard for football quickly. It's the same with your financial statements, but the problem is you can't read something you don't have, and then the accountants aren't providing this stuff. So in sum, again, Warren Buffett looks for capital expenditure. Think of that as property, plant, and equipment, right? Hopefully that's pretty straightforward. But these are assets purchased to help a business grow. And then what percentage are they to net earnings? And net earnings is just another word for profit, right? So he wants this calculation to be as low as possible, like 25%. So
hold on a second. Hold on, Shoots. Before you go, I have a serious question about the 25%, but did you say diddled? Like that's the word that you're using to describe?
It's a good word. That's what I'm going to do to your prediction.
Not the right word. I'm just going to throw that out there. And by the way, if you want a complicated scoreboard, tough to read, curling. That one, a lot of people screw up the curling scoreboard. So, but anyways, speaking of scoreboards and diddling, if 25% is a good percentage that you were just talking about, that Buffett was using, like what's an acceptable percentage for capital expenditures to net profit? Now that may be getting a little too detailed, but just this, little bit of Chinese arithmetic going on here, but this is look, you want your client to grow, and if you want them to grow, they're going to need more assets, so you should be able to give them some sort of a framework. I promise you, you're hearing this and it sounds like Chinese arithmetic, then you really need to either listen again or go do your own exploration of this stuff, because it's very straightforward. You use some different terms that we're not used to in the sales and marketing game, but it's important. But anyway, so look, 25% is good, and that or below signals what we'll call a well-run business. Less than 50%, I dare say, would be deemed as acceptable. And I'm speaking on behalf of Warren Buffett here. I have that would be close. Anything over 50% would be too high and considered a risky business or operator. In other words, vulnerable if things go sideways over a period of time. A noted exception can be made, like with Apple I mentioned earlier, right? But in a given year with a large purchase, like something like a real estate or it's a big vehicle and dependent upon, right? But over time, the story will be told. And just think of, if you know somebody who flips houses for a living, I'm going to show you somebody who didn't make a lot of money flipping houses in the end, but they look like a genius in number 1, number 2, and if they made it to number 3, but then they get screwed on number 4 and all the profits evaporate, right? It's like, it's the Uber driver who thinks he makes $100,000 a year and doesn't realize he just ruined a $50,000 car to make $100,000, right? It's so anyway, but again, just it's super a little bit of Chinese arithmetic going on, but it's pretty straightforward. But the answer, 40% gross and 20% net as a framework for gross to net profit margins, and below 50% for return on unleveraged net tangible assets would be acceptable, and ideally closer to 25 for your answer, right? And again, I know those unfamiliar, this is sounding, but this is pretty straightforward stuff, right? Like, can they buy assets they need, for their business without borrowing the money every time? And if they borrow, common sense corner, think of playing Monopoly, okay? It makes them vulnerable. It is unavoidable when they're growing, but it needs to be managed. My question, are they managing it? And I'm going to tell you probably not.
Are they meeting with their accountant on a regular basis? I'm going to say probably not. Do they have a scoreboard to even outline any of the stuff that we just talked about? Probably not. Should they? Abso-freaking-lutely. So there you go. And this is why, as business coaches, we need to be all rounders. Like you can't just be the sales and marketing guy. You've got to be able to help them manage that stuff, because you make, sales, huge sales. The marketing's killing it. They're starting to build a little bit of a local brand, and then they have an accounts receivable problem. You're just setting them up for a big fail. So I hope that there you go, Road Dog. That's the answer, Shoots. But the answer would be about 25, less than 50, 25% as a framework, bud. There you go.
So next question that came up, and this is something that you and I just talked about a couple of weeks ago down at the brew pub there down at the barn. The question here that somebody wrote in says, I heard you're not a fan of traditional education, so just be warned, everybody. This is a rabbit hole and a half. My kid has a flair for business. What is this person must be related to you with flair for business. What is your vision for business education in college/university in the future for my teenagers? So this is, I know exactly how you feel about this, but I'm not sure if we've actually talked about it on the podcast. So I'm curious to see where you take it here.
Yeah. There you look. This is parenting advice, Shoots. That's what's happening. That's where we're going, Road Dog. We're moving on up, bud. We're moving on up. Look, education is critical. I think that sometimes, again, education is critical. A degree is not, right? Learn what you got to learn and get the hell out of there and go apply would be like 30,000 foot vantage point, right? Like buy your kid a deli or landscaping equipment and a few critical online courses for, let's call it 50 grand, rather than spending 50 grand a year in school. Like, would that be a good idea? And I don't know. You tell me, but you tell me if he's going to learn more running a business than he is going to business school and learning from someone who possibly have never actually been in business, right? So I think, again, we've indirectly covered over this, at different times. So I'm going to gloss over quick, but it's going to be 80-20. Okay, 20% of the existing universities and colleges will survive. 80% will go. Not tomorrow, but over the next, let's call it decade. It's like retail, right? We saw the end coming. They've hung in there longer than we thought. But my 7-year-old daughter could see plain as day, it's game over for retail as we know it, right? So MIT, Harvard, UCLA, these types of guys are going to make it, but the others are going to fall over, right? So the value of an education is diminished massively when you eliminate the, you call it social aspect, the football game, the basketball game, the beer drinking, the sex, the parties. College is a million times less exciting when you take that stuff up, and it's just you take that stuff out, and it's just a $50,000 annual proposition. I don't know. You think about it, right? So here's what you should pay attention to for your teenager, right? Like, look to see partnerships between large tech companies. So I want you to think Netflix for theater, Google for computer science, Harvard for business, MIT for engineering. These bigger companies they're going to partner with large large colleges and whatnot, and they're going to offer like a hybrid, of like campus and online. And remember, Amazon and Netflix, look, they are HR companies. I've often said, if you introduce me to a $25 million company, in fact, I'll lower that. You introduce me to a $10 million company, and I'll introduce you to an HR company. Or like I believe I just literally hired a guy 2 days ago, another software engineer, and my job right now is to bring on talented people. Like, that's what I see. So, and I'm not in any way trying to suggest that I'm in any conversation even remotely in the same stratosphere as an Amazon or a Netflix. So make sure you're hearing that clear. But I will tell you that Amazon and Netflix are HR companies all day long and twice on Sunday, right? Like, and their job is to convince shareholders and key staff that are getting job offers elsewhere that their stock is going to double over the next 3 to 7 years. Otherwise, they're going to go and invest in crypto, or they're going to go work for Salesforce.com or the new SaaS company, right? Like, to double stock price, you don't necessarily need to double revenue, but you do need to paint a picture of the future that is incredible and is it exciting. Like, remember, said this recently as well, Amazon has made vision and leadership the reason stock goes up rather than profits. right? And so profit is not the reason that Amazon is a $1 trillion company. It is the vision of the leader named Jeff Bezos, who's stepped down or stepping down. But that is just like as a student of this stuff is just gobsmackingly spectacular what he has done, right? But by going into online education, okay, these bigger players, Amazon, Netflix, and you just look at the big seven, right? It translates into people paying to get trained to become their employees, like Zoinks. That's huge opportunity for huge revenues and a high level of control on impressionable people in the age bracket of 18 to 25 years old, right? Remember, successful business is about margins, ideally luxury margins. Education has huge margins, like make Ferrari look like lightweights. Do the math on $50,000 a year by 1,000 kids with one professor per classroom, right? Yeah, there's some staffing and some real estate, but again, these guys are these big classes, these big universities are hedge funds, right? Make no mistake about it. Like, does Apple, I keep hearing that Apple's going to get into the car business like everybody says, right? Well, maybe they are, but they're really in the control your mind game. That's why Amazon is going to buy Peloton. People who buy Pelotons are rich. The end. Well, rich people staring at a screen for 30 minutes a day, that is a business that Apple wants to be in. They want eyeballs. They want earlobes. So for them to come, so remember, their job is to tell like the person who's applying or their existing shareholders that they're going to be able to double their share price. Well, going into the game of education is going to be a way for them to be able to do well, in my opinion. And hey, I ain't on the board. You know what I mean? I'm a nobody on freaking steroids, but hey, all this stuff is documented, and we're going to know in 3 to 5 years whether or not I'm right, and I'd be betting on this. So in some like more people than ever are going to be able to get high level education. And again, just despite what a lot of people say, and including me in different ways, but understand that education in the right hands has huge value, and take huge value and capitalize it, italicize it, bold it. But the borderline non-specific, like think of the arts degree, right? The guy who got the degree and didn't really do anything, just did psychology because I didn't know what else to do, or general arts. That is going away, right? And when I say going away, again, and we're talking over a long period of time, but a $50,000 entry fee, just not going to happen. And speaking of price, the price for society to all this, this online education is what I'm describing, and less parties and less football games. It's going to be, and this is for teenagers, right? Less and less social interaction is what I see. And we're going to be raising some socially inept people if we are not proactive with making sure that, they're getting, in social environments and being comfortable socially. I can't see how that's not the result here of all this Zooming and whatnot. But yes, that's it. And people that would otherwise be going to Berkeley are going to be able to get into, an MIT, a Harvard or whatever. And that would have never happened in the past. So top universities are going to become richer and richer. The 80-20, right? The 20 are going to do better than ever. The second tier is going to get pulverized a little bit, and the third tier is going to become a ghost town, right? Like Harvard's going to accept, 5,000 students a year rather than 750. I don't even know what those numbers are. But that's, whatever. They're going to take 5 times as many students in the future than they do now, right? So, and what they did, huge scarcity. The greatest branding of these universities, think MIT, Harvard, is scarcity, right? People don't understand or see that. It's the scarcity. It's the fact that you can't get in, right? The second biggest branding exercise they have, which I think is equally unnoticed, is the interview process and the waiting game that they provide, or make people, the hoops that they have to jump through. Like, how common is it to see mom and dad post on Facebook that they're so proud their kid got accepted to XYZ college, right? Like, oh my gosh, we get to pay 50 grand a year for the next 4 years for our kid to go to XYZ, right? And it's not happening by accident. It is measured by very powerful algorithms to gauge their effectiveness. Like, an example, like if we make them wait, like, say it took X amount of time to get their acceptance letter, if we add 14 days, I wonder what that does to the impact and the social sharing that goes on by mom and dad, right? That's the kind of thing that they're measuring, right? Like like, like MIT, the other students have been like, what am I trying to say? Networking is like part of why you go to MIT or Harvard, right? Like the Harvard grads, have you seen the Social Network, right? Big wigs on campus. Like that's part of why you want to go to these Ivy League schools, right? So that's again part of their process and their bigger picture. And how is that relevant? Look, your coaching clients, are they interviewing? Are they taking? Do they have scarcity? Right? And I don't need to meet them to know that they have no scarcity. I don't need to meet you to know if you're listening to this, you don't have any scarcity. You don't even think you have any scarcity. And it's crazy. The most popular brands in the world use scarcity. I've said this one also, but the McDonald's 5 greatest offers of all time, and you just Google my name and then McDonald's 5 greatest offers, and you're going to be staring at an email. And the 5 best offers that they've ever had of all time, they've all got one thing in common. And that one thing is scarcity, right? Like this for a limited time. You can get the McRib, you can get this, you can get that for a limited time. So, and the dean at these universities, right? He stands up and he's at Harvard, Caltech, MIT, and he says, we didn't reject 80% of the applicants this year. We rejected 90% of the applicants, and then everybody cheers, right? Like this is a good thing. Like understand what that, like 9 of 10 people who apply, they turned away, right? It's the X factor of a luxury good is limited supply, right? So if you want to buy a new Ferrari, you put a non-refundable deposit down and you wait a year, right? These schools use that same dynamic, only they do it better. Imagine if 9 of 10 people who wanted to buy a Ferrari couldn't even put a deposit down. And you don't think of MIT in the same category as Ferrari, but they are well and truly, right? Like 50 grand to sit in a room with 100 other students. Think about the margins on that, right? Gosh, it's mind-bogglingly crazy. But here's the thing. Okay, if you agree that 50 grand to sit in a room with 100 other students or whatever it is a little bit, hang on a sec, that's not going to last. Well, that's an industry that is ripe for disruption. And the really good news, if you're listening to this is the space that you operate in, we operate in as business coaches. Well, the ones that understand the business that they're in, and definitely the ones that work with us. But also as you move forward, so Zoom, you're going to MIT. How's it going to change? The professor is on Zoom. Huge difference doing something on Zoom and then doing it live. No doubt you've worked that out. And let me tell you that Zoom, you got to be a lot more animated, and you got to be, I know about this, internally with our group, right? You've got to be able to laugh and you got to be able to have a good time. So you're going to find like more actor types are going to become professors, and the super smart PhD stiffs type are going to get shown the door, because they're not going to be able to connect with the audience, which is the students, which are the ones that they're trying to get the 50 grand a year from, right? So I don't know, Road Dog, kind of going down a rabbit hole. I'll just look, in closing, I'm going to say this. Wealth, the wealth of some individuals is just bloody gobsmacking, right? We got billionaires and billionaires and billionaires. Look, it's not NASA sending people to Mars. It's Bezos and Musk, billionaires, right? A billionaire was just president of the USA. You love him, you hate him, it doesn't matter. A billionaire basically walked into the Oval Office, right? So the billionaires are wealthier than most governments. So given what I said earlier about margins, I think you're going to see billionaires also coming in and making a bit of a dent on the educational system. And part of that is going to be Apple, Netflix, partnering with MITs and whatnot. I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but arguments for both. But I can say that our governments over an extended period of time have made a bit of a joke, right? The outside of the heavyweights of Harvard, the heavyweight schools that provide really good education. Think of let's go high school. Just the whole system has dinosaur crap on it, right? The books haven't been updated, and on it goes. It's cognitive learning, sitting there spitting, knowledge at people as they sit there and don't really do anything. That's just not the way it's going to go. So I think that, some heavyweight businesses are going to kind of step in. So that's, I don't know if I answered that well, but traditional education, I see some massive disruption coming. For me personally, this is the business that we operate in. So this is a fantastic thing for us. And that's why we're hiring software engineers and spending, more money than you get, 7 figures on our software to keep it going and, growing and becoming more educational and more powerful, et cetera. So Road Dogg, that's my answer. Shoots. What do you think?
Jeez, almost missed the unmute button there. Holy smokes. My goodness. Listen, I'm going to change gears here because, I think that's enough numbers talk. But again, I say that not knowing where your brain goes because it's a dark and scary place. But in terms of where that brain does go, it kind of leads into the next question here. And the question was, can you help me mentally prepare for the day and the week? And they also put here, and then help me help my clients mentally prepare for the day and the week. Are those different, or would you approach those the same?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I guess we're all business owners, so that's good. I think it's good that they're thinking through that. You need to mentally prepare, but also as a business coach, if you want to be a really good business coach, you need to be able to move people, right? Like your client says that they're overwhelmed and want to cancel. There's no such thing as a bad student. There's only a bad teacher. You got to take that one on the chin. So no, I think that's good. They're thinking it, breaking up like breaking it up in both. So look, as a starting point, realize that like scientists have done the math, right? Speaking of math, Road Dogg, did I go there? But look, so they've worked out the chances of you being born, right? Like factoring natural disasters, pandemics, wars, your parents meeting and having sex in that exact moment, the other sperms that were racing for the finish line, possibly a blowjob or two. Am I allowed to say that, Road Dogg? Is that all right?
I don't know, but you already went to diddling, so I'm not sure. I think we're in no man's land at this stage.
Anyway, so look, but true story that scientists have done the math, and like you are 1 in 500 trillion, right? So Road Dogg's 1 in 500 trillion. I'm 1 in 500 trillion. You are 1 in 500 trillion, right? Remember, a million seconds is 11 days. A billion seconds is 32 years. And a trillion seconds is 32,000 years. So please don't compare trillions to millions. They have nothing to do with one another. So you are 1 in 500 trillion. You're a walking, talking miracle. And so am I, right? But you don't feel like it, right? Just stop your plan B is the way that I would say, like every person you look up to, and I mean really look up to, every person that inspires you to push harder, every superstar athlete, every superstar businessman, like, the Bezos and the Gates. And if you love them or you hate them, it's irrelevant. It's hard not to be inspired by what they've created and how hard they've pushed and what they've built. Or maybe it's a superstar investor like a Ray Dalio, Warren Buffett. Maybe it's a poker player, an actor, a businesswoman. Anybody that's achieved greatness has gone all in, right? They blew up the boats. They didn't have a plan B. They had a win or die approach. That's why, like, you ever noticed, like, heavyweights in business have stories of bankruptcies with almost predictability, right? Like, stop giving yourself an out. If you either own your excuses, I guess, or they own you, right? Like, think about how amazing a limited company is. Your upside is infinite. You could build $1 trillion business with the same paperwork that you could fail with, but you could only go down to zero. You can't go below zero, right? So you got to go to the penalty box. They call it bankruptcy, right, for a little while, but you can get back in the game and with a little bit of creativity, and that might be a sister starting a company or a mom starting a company or somebody close to you or a business partner where you set things up in their name to get going, right? That's why I'll never understand why entrepreneurs don't push harder. And I believe that as a business coach, that's part of your job is helping them see, a bigger vision than they currently see, right? Like I met, in fact, literally yesterday, I got some work done on my computer and this guy comes and he's a mechanical, he just graduated as a mechanical engineer, right? Smart as 50 people, right? A guy just, frankly, some of the stuff that we talked about, I was like, wow. And I'm like, so what are you going to look to do? He just graduated like literally in the last few weeks, right? He goes, I'm thinking of starting a Persian restaurant, right? I'm like, are you freaking crazy, right? So we sat down and we had a long chat and I'm just like, take mechanical engineering and business, overlap the two of them. And if you can bring a third discipline in and overlap that, my goodness, right? Like again, he's a mechanical engineer. Think about, you don't need to meet him to know that he's a methodical thinker on steroids. And this is a good thing. And you guys have heard me say this, like the world doesn't need another restaurant, right? And that's kind of where I went with him. Unless he's going to, I told him, if you revolutionize the kitchen, okay, for other restaurants, then talk to me. But a Persian restaurant in Kelowna, like where we live, a city of, 200,000 people. And by the way, if you have a massive passion and this is something you've always wanted to do, then go for it. But then my other question is, why the heck would you do mechanical engineering, right? And he's like, a long story. He's like, I don't know. I just did it. Anyways, you know, like think big is what I'm trying to get at here, right? Like think big, help your clients think big. Like when I sat him down and he all of a sudden, he's listening to the podcast and he was completely enthralled by the time he left, right? And great guy, and I'm going to keep in touch with him, right? So I don't know, just giving yourself outs and thinking too small. Like I remember like back in, what was it, like 1993, 92, anyway, whatever. I go into college. I was already an entrepreneur, right? And I was creating basically coupons for local businesses. And I created basically what is the idea for Groupon. Like I shit you not, I'm 19 years old. And I basically had the idea that as Groupon, right? I took the idea, I remember, to my marketing professor. He's a marketing guy, and we got along well. And I did a little bit of work with him, yada, yada, yada. And he was taken aback and he said something to the effect of like, this is an incredible idea. Eyebrows were up, etc. I should go all in on this big time. And I think, again, it's a long time ago, but I think he kind of hinted at the fact that he would be interested in even having a financial interest in the idea, right? And look, I was 19 years old, so surely I could be excused as not going, all in and not imagining all it could have been. But, who knows where that could have ended up. And by the way, this is pre-internet. So rather than using the internet, I was going to be taking full pages in the local newspaper. The back page is where I had the vision, and the local businesses would be there and they'd be getting back page exposure, but there would be like 50 of them. And then you'd have your scissors, right? Because this is 1992, 93, and you'd be cutting out, coupons, right? But the bottom line is what is Groupon, and they were going to rotate. You couldn't just have the same offer and over again, because I knew I had to, bring people in, and I would have to rotate the businesses as well. And this big plan, but bottom line, not going all in could be looked back as a mistake, maybe not. Bottom line is it would have had infinite upside, very limited downside, and I only could have gone to zero. And I think there's massive power in that people don't think about. This is part of your job as a business coach. You got to help people push the boundaries. We were on the pre-show, Road Dog, right? We opened up one of our coaches, and she's just like, government and background, do. And she's like, my guy, I was nervous. I wasn't sure if I could do this. And then I saw the roadmap and I saw the different ways that you help companies. And I was like, wow, like this is so easy. And I'm like, you're right. It is that easy because they're messing it up, right? They don't have goals written down. They don't have, they think that they know 80-20 because they've heard about it. But if I follow them around for a day, I can show you that they're doing the exact opposite of 80-20. They're doing more squeaky wheel gets the oil than they are 80-20, right? They're not operating with anything that could resemble a mental model. It's just, it's just go, right? No, 30,000 foot overview. They spend all their time, saying yes instead of saying no kind of thing. So just, thinking bigger. A $5 question is going to get you a $5 answer. Start asking a $50,000 question, building an online course for $37, or should you build a $50,000 coaching program, right? Like on this podcast recently, Road Dog, I opened up one of my clients from Kyla from, 2008-ish. I sold her $100,000 coaching program in 2008, right? And she's probably listening to this, by the way. She's still a client today. Like she's still a client today. So the bottom line is that should you be building your $37 online course so that you don't have to talk to anybody? Or should you be building a $50,000 coaching program to really move people? And hopefully that answer is absolutely very straightforward. Easier said, don't build a $50,000 coaching program if you don't have the talents to fulfill on a $50,000 coaching program, by the way. But, it's like the realtor selling $350,000 apartments instead of $3 million houses. That realtor lives in a $30,000 apartment. That's why they can't see a bigger vision, right? So as you're going through this, also think about them. Okay, like as in the client rather than you. Jeff Bezos, read his letters to shareholders. He's totally customer obsessed. That's how they built Amazon, on being customer obsessed, right? And you'll always do more for others than you do for yourself. Just think, the kids have got to be at gymnastics, at basketball, at baseball on Saturday morning, and you have to get up at 6. Well, you get up, you shit, shower, shave, you get the kids there, no questions asked. When it's your turn to wake up at 6 and go for the job and go for the gym, before the family wakes up, what do? You roll over and hit the snooze button, right? You choose sleep over, something other, rather than going to bed a little bit earlier, right? So you always do more for others than you do for yourself. So as you're sitting there thinking about your coaching business and creating this big vision, don't go to you. Like the goal of a lot of coaching businesses is to make 10 grand a month, right? It's just the worst. It's so pathetic, right? It's an okay, and it's an okay starting point, right? But it's just going to get you nowhere. Try put $100,000 into a bank account within 90 days of taking on the client. Take your mind there, and you're going to get a million times further. And when you create that roadmap and you don't have the client, you're going to be so excited to get the client. You got no bloody idea, right? I always say, like, coaches will ask me, what's a good roadmap? I say, get a pen and paper, think of a category of business, butcher, baker, candlestick maker, the restaurant, whatever, and write down 50 ways that you're going to help the restaurant or the butcher, baker, candlestick maker. The next day, you won't be able to contain yourself with your excitement to get a hold of them, right? So, that's hopefully that's obvious, but this is what I don't see anybody doing, right? The consistency, like, it's an apple a day, not 7 apples on Sunday. In fact, I sent that out as a email recently, and I got a lot of a lot of feedback and comments and whatever, reply emails and whatnot. And it's like just so true, right? It's not 7 apples on Sunday, but that's what most people do, right? The number one addiction in this world, right? Alcohol, drugs, this, that, and the other. The number one addiction by 100 miles is problems. Number 2 would be sugar, but number 1 is problems. That's the addiction, right? And then, by the way, actually, I'd maybe take that further. Other people's problems, because the person who's addicted to the problems they always want to look out the window and not in the mirror, right? And the solution is always in the mirror. It's so getting yourself cranking. Look, read. I personally am addicted to learning. There's no question, right? It's rewarded me very handsomely, and that's why I'm addicted to it, right? Like there's 6 human. If you follow Tony Robbins, and I do, and Road Dogg does, and I think he's got the best personal development content in the world. That's my opinion, and I'm very cool if you disagree. But I got to tell you, he's got like these 6 human needs. What are they? Certainty, uncertainty, love and connection, significance, growth, and contribution, right? So those are the 6 needs. When an activity gives you 3 of the 6, when an activity gives your client 3 of those 6, it becomes an addiction, right? So again, now make it healthy as opposed to not healthy. Like when you wake up in the morning and you drink your sugary coffee from Starbucks or what have you, look, what is that doing for you? And has it become an addiction? And a lot of people, the answer to that is a resounding yes. Maybe that's something you need to look at. You cut that out, and it's going to take a little bit of mental strength, and that will. It's a bad way to start a day, and it's a great habit to give up. So yeah, I think recognizing those things, you're trying to mentally prepare for the day, helping your clients mentally prepare. It's just going like again, Road Dogg, we talked about my mentor. We were doing some work, like yesterday was Sunday, and we did a 2-hour call yesterday, and because we're doing some deep work, and like he opens up a file and he's literally got Tony Robbins' 6 needs listed out, and then he's got like, I'm just going to say 20 talking points for himself, not for me, but for him. And this is a document that he follows and he revisits, he says, on a weekly basis. And it's just like, again, the super successful people, like people are non-successful and they're like, I wonder why. And then people are super successful. Just doing the fundamentals is what matters, right? Like the professional athlete is working out not 7 times on Sunday, but working out every single day. Bad day, good day, sniffles, they do the work, right? They do the work. So anyway, so it's just not, what's the quote by Warren Buffett, that humans have an incredible propensity to make I'm totally messing this up, but the premise of it is that people have an amazing propensity for making things more complicated than they need to be, right? So just keep it simple, stupid. When Warren Buffett, like when he invests in a company, it's super simple. You'll see that he doesn't invest in, high-end clients, and times are changing. So let's, what used to be complicated isn't quite as complicated now. Like he's not an investor in Salesforce. My mentor was one of the first investors in Salesforce, by the way, but like Buffett's not. And is that a mistake? I think if you asked him, he would say, look, it's a mistake in the financial returns, but it's not a mistake because I follow mental models and I have a formula and it didn't fit my formula, and it still doesn't, right? So that's fine. But as an investor today who's, getting going, would I agree with Warren Buffett's rules? And the answer is no, right? Sign of the times. So out of the road. So look, okay, so somebody wants to mentally prepare for the day. Would I give them like steps? Okay, let's go. Number one, let's just create like some steps here. Number one, create an achievable daily habit, right? Like personally, I wake up, I'll go, I make myself a tea, and I come straight to my office and I get to work, right? But just a daily habit, like in the office by 7 a.m. Maybe for you, it's like me, like, you're in the office at 5 a.m. And maybe another example is 10 outreaches per day. And maybe it's help 3 business owners a day, right? I've often said, if you are a business coach and you help 3 business owners a day, whether they pay you or not, but you help 3 business owners every single day, on day 90, you will not be able to keep up. The end. Drop the mic. No Facebook ads, no sexy delusional 4-hour work weeks and multiple streams of income. You just crush it, right? But create an achievable daily habit. What is that for you? That might be working out, right? So that's number one. Number two, a list of reasons why. I did a fast a while back, and one of the first things I did is I wrote a list of reasons why I needed to follow through on my fast. And when I got hungry, this is what I did, right? I went to them. One of the things I do is I set an alarm 4 times a day. I call that quarter time. So it just prompts me to say, like, am I achieving? Am I on the ball, right? Am I in beta or alpha mode here? Like, am I rocking it? So that might work well for you. It works very well for me. Every 8, 10, 12, and 2, my alarm goes off. Work out for 30 minutes. Absolutely. Like, I kind of made that number one, but just make that standalone. It should be non-negotiable. Journal. And when you journal, 3 things that you're grateful for, being grateful, as in concentrating on what you have instead of what you don't have, is like a superpower. And maybe, again, writing down your goal. And then number 6, like, create a monthly scoreboard, or like think of it as like a flip chart, Monday to Friday, with 4 weeks that track your leads and your sales for your coaching company. We're going to call that, again, real simple scoreboard for your coaching business. And I think you could do really well. In fact, on day 200, but if you follow my One Thing series, just Karl Bryan, day 205. On day 205, I put together a little bit of a 4-step hack that you could do. But like, number one is like book a competition. So I am going to swim across the lake, right? It's a 4-hour swim. I am not a great swimmer, but I guarantee I'm going to get across that lake, and that beer is going to taste real good on the other end. But basically, I have set a date for mid-July. My best friend and I are doing it, and we are swimming across the lake, right? So that's not necessarily a competition, but it's a specific date, and that is what I'm doing. Or for you, that's a marathon. Like Road Dogg did a marathon not too long ago. Or it's it's a boxing. I do kickboxing, right? So what I do, I would book myself a fight as an example. So book yourself a competition, book into Tough Mudder, book into the 5 kilometer or the 5 mile, 10 mile jog. And then hack number 2 was write a goal. One of the things I do is I get a piece of paper and I write down my goal like 1,000 times on a piece of paper until there is no white on the page. Works really well for me. It might work for you. Steal it, try it for 30 days, not 7 times on Sunday, but once a day for 30 days, and see what happens. It's going to take you, a number of minutes, 10 minutes to get this thing done, but just write that goal down. I find that to be a hack. The other thing, your password on your phone, you probably open that bad boy 100 times a day. So if your goal is 10,000 a month, change your password to 10,000, right? Like 20 times, 10 times a day or whatever, you're opening up your phone. That can be a little bit of a hack. And the other one you'll find on day 205 is my personal mantra. What I do is I set a goal, and then I go, I now command my subconscious mind to direct me to do whatever it takes to, and let's say it's earn $1 million a month, whatever it is, right? Just $1 million a month for the sake of the argument. I now command my subconscious mind to direct me to do whatever it takes to make $1 million a month starting now. And I have to end it with starting now, because otherwise, without the starting now, it could just be like one day. Okay. It's like Tony Robbins will say, if you ask the world for more money, somebody gives you $5. What's the point, right? Like you got what you wanted, but you weren't specific enough. So I now command my subconscious mind to direct me. If you're trying to get the 10 grand a month, I now command my subconscious mind to direct me to do whatever it takes to make $10,000 a month in recurring revenue with new coaching clients starting now. I now command my subconscious mind. And if you go to day 205, that wording is going to be there. So anyways, Road Dogg, mentally prepare. I get it. I get the importance. That's how I would do it for you and your coaching clients. And what do you think, bud? You go deeper on anything, or what do you reckon?
Well, I know that we're going a little long here, but real quick, I hope that actually holds true just once. Any predictors of success that provide consistency? Because I think that's probably the biggest thing, right? It's one thing to do something once in a while, but the consistency of it. So, are there any predictors of success that provide consistency?
Yeah, love it. So here's a good benchmark. Here's a benchmark that you might not think about, right? The amount of time that you spend watching other people sweat is a bad thing. In other words, if you're sitting on the couch all weekend watching others play football, baseball, basketball, netball, cricket, whatever your shtick is and your sport is, you likely are an unhappy sod. And if I look in your past, you got some anger issues and a series of broken relationships in your wake, right? So people are insanely predictable, right? Like the world's an insanely predictable place when you rise above and do what I often describe as the number one ultimate, what do you call, competitive advantage, and that's to see the entire playing field. When you stop and think, like seeing the entire playing field is just stopping, go up 30,000 feet, right? Like the number one trait amongst procrastinators, or the real factor behind procrastination, is loneliness, right? So get around other people. Your network is your net worth. Who are the people around you that you're networking, and who's pushing you or pulling you back, right? Like there's one trait among serial killers, right? A little bit how you doing, but serial killers, there's only one, and it's an overbearing mother. All kinds, from well-off families and poor families, this, that, and the other. An overbearing mother, boom, that's the one, right? If you introduce me to somebody with depression, I normally introduce you to somebody with alcohol issues, right? So the number one across the board for successful men, I'm going to say financially and otherwise, working out 3 to 5 times a week, right? So if you have an overbearing mother, I might not be able to help you. But if you want to be financially successful and experience financial freedom, big house, the awesome car that you want, no money issues, what you would refer to as freedom, you want to be the envy of all your friends, stay away from alcohol and work out 3 to 5 times a week, right? And percentages say that this will work. So that's, are there predictors? There absolutely are. And by the way, don't just take it as like I'm right? Go and do your own homework, and then you'll see. But if you rise up 30,000 feet and you look at the entire playing field, I think that you'll find that you'll be amazed at how predictable things are and how simple it can become, right? Like Warren Buffett says, people make things complicated, and they just don't need to be. So there you go, Shoots. That's what I'd say, bud. Stay away from alcohol and work out 3 to 5 days a week.
Well, I can guarantee one of those two things. So on that note, can you give us kind of our listeners the one thing that they can implement to start doing from today's podcast?
Oh, final thought. Well, so like my profit acceleration software has like 497 million weighted algorithmic sequences, and it basically populates a roadmap. So think of it as like a step-by-step guide, what to do, when to do it, as in like the order that you follow, for like financial success, so that you can, if you're $2,000 a month, 24 grand a year, imagine within 60 to 90 days to be able to point and say, you've made 24,000. So I am free for the rest of the year. Like how cool would that be? Right. But nobody does that. That's a hack right there. Find your fees, create your fees, and then remind them that you earned it and that you're free for the rest of the year. That's like a really great way to keep a client for 12 months. Otherwise, kind of, what have you done for me lately? What have you done for me lately? Right. So like I said earlier, like if a company has 10% margins and you decrease their expenses by 11%, you double that company's profitability. No staff, no sales, no Facebook ads, no multiple streams of income and live presentations, no nothing, right? You just bingo, bango, bongo. It's right there. So the weighted algorithms in the software provide that roadmap. So I think understanding that there's a roadmap, that you should be thinking through the roadmap. Don't just automatically go to, jumping up and down and singing Kumbaya and pretending like your goal is to motivate them, right? Always, if you do traditional coaches training, they tell you your client already knows what they need to know. You just need to draw it out of them, right? I just laugh at that. It's so stupid. Like I get a better saying, you motivate an idiot, they do stupid things quicker, right? That'll get you a little bit further, right? So what do I mean? Like without you guiding them, they're going to lower their prices. Without you guiding them, they're going to do more products and services, right? And then you look at Apple and you see that they have luxury margins and very few products and services. So when they follow that roadmap, they're doing the exact opposite of what they should be doing, which is just crazy. So anyway, so that's the final thought is that got to be thinking about a roadmap to be able to follow. So there you go, Road Dog. That's my answer, Shoots. What do you think, bud?
Well, I don't think we're going to sing Kumbaya, but maybe we're going to sing Young Homie. It's hard to say. Hey,
Chris Renee, buddy. Chris Renee, he is a stud. We love that.
Folks, if you want a throwback, there it is. Young Homie. What's his name again?
Chris Renee.
One day, Karl, you will get him on the podcast, and you will be the happiest interviewer in the history of podcasting.
That's a good idea.
Well, on that note, listen, everybody, thanks for tuning into another great episode of Business Coaching Secrets with the main man on top of the hill, King Karl. If you're not on the inside and getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting Karl's daily emails, or just want more information how to build your coaching company, visit focused.com and subscribe today. Also, if you enjoyed this podcast, please share with a fellow coach or someone you think that might make a great coach. And of course, we'd always appreciate it if you'd rate this episode, as we know that iTunes, Spotify, and others give a great amount of weight towards reviews. So please leave us a review if you like what you heard. And that is it for another week. We will speak with you in the next episode. And remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.